5 episodes of your very first and very only podcast. You really lean into both habits old and yet somehow, indulgence is new. And if you are watching this in a visual format, rather than just listening in audio, then you'll already know what I'm talking about, which is I'm coming into this episode very mellow, very chill, and very relaxed in a delightful bathrobe. I don't actually own this, and I can give great thanks to the owner of this bathrobe for lending it to me for this occasion. And I can assure you that it's just exquisite, comfortable, warm, and it's really just leaning us into a relaxed mood. And so I hope you will bear with me, dear listener, on this more relaxed episode as we again try to hit some of that feeling of the early days of the podcast, those initial episodes where we were laid back in a chair and really setting the tone and the mood to be really just cool as a cucumber, and one could argue low effort. And that's kind of the theme of the episode today is effort and what to put in and how to do it. But before we get there, I wanted to give you an update on the tour. The Unclear tour is actually in disguise, as you've heard me talk about, a mission for myself to be in Canada for a fun administrative reason and renew a document. And let me tell you, I've done it. I have renewed that document, and that's fantastic. And I feel very good about that. That's a big achievement. It allows me to do lots more things and have lots more choices in my life, which is obviously fantastic. It allows me to stay in this country where I'm at, what I love. And that's what I plan to do, at least in the near future. So, all of that's great news and feels like a big win. And so the tour feels like it was justified, and you've joined me here from various people's apartments and different locations over the last few months. And let me tell you, it's all kind of been worth it, at least objective wise. But some days I feel like when George Bush stood in front of those posters and stuff, telling everyone that they'd won and they'd secured a victory right after 9/11. And, I don't want to make my situation too grandiose, but I'm trying to describe a sort of deflated feeling, if you will, where, yes, we did do one good thing and we've got the document in hand, and that's fantastic. But, other things happened along the way, and some were unplanned, as we've talked about in previous episodes, and, some were exciting. And as you may have gained through all of that content, one of those major events that I did not plan for whilst being here, doing all the other stuff, touring and filling out forms, was, I managed to lose my job. And that is obviously very upsetting. It can be very sudden. And you've heard me talk about trying to get re-employed again. And that's a whole bunch of work and a big uphill struggle. And, I've spent these weeks while I've been on tour and trying to secure my place in the country's legal system. I've been obviously rethinking about myself and thinking about my place in the workforce and what job do I want to do, and did I enjoy my last work, and what was it about that job that I liked, and what parts of my self was I expressing, what parts of my skill set was I expressing, what parts of my technical ability was I growing at that time? And, measuring up those things against other points in my own career, measuring those things up against the people around me, the people I'm catching up with, the people I'm seeing after a time. And I'm hearing about their very powerful and influential and important jobs and their ambitions and their goals and their successes, of course. And inevitably, I'm measuring them against mine, casting myself as down and out, unemployed, without permanent address, and so on and so forth. And ultimately just thinking about, okay, where am I now? What happened when I lost these jobs? And what will my next one look like? And yeah, with all that, you're asking yourself what kind of job you want to work. And therefore, you end up asking yourself, how hard do you want to work? And what I mean by that is that some jobs really challenge you, push you out of your, sort of lane, give you new objectives that allow you to explore parts of, again, yourself and your skill set, and apply them to this new role. Maybe you even shift roles in the company or in your own career path, and that, it becomes a huge, fresh new challenge. And you can grow yourself, right? And you can accept that and take that on and add things to your ability. And hopefully, I feel like we were talking about this before, progress and succeed more and hopefully get paid more and get recommended more and all of those kind of things. And so you can take that career path and that branch, every time you're faced with one of these decisions, wherein you can, there's a upward momentum that I'm describing, right? Or, of course, you can rest on your laurels. You can take a sideways move, right? You can do a job that doesn't push you. It is exactly in your wheelhouse. It's exactly what you know how to do, and exactly, in a space you know how to achieve in. And so you can just turn up and you can achieve. And maybe because it is so familiar to you, and if you're in a fun job and a fun industry, well, as many of them are now, where you can work from home and your hours aren't so, rigidly managed. Maybe you find out that the kind of work that used to take you 7 hours now it only takes you 5 hours, or now it only takes you 6 hours. It's a little bit less and just enough to allow you to, in fact, ease off a little bit and relax a little bit and not work so hard to get the same amount of money or the same amount of success, right? The same amount of productivity for sure, but those other things that come with it. You're comfortable where you are, or you're comfortable rather where you were in the last place. And now you want to just keep that parallel move. And so I'm thinking about this a lot when I'm thinking about what I'm doing in my life. But also I feel like I'm hearing the phrase quiet quitting a lot. That's the hot button item that I want to bring into this week's podcast so that we can really set off the algorithms in that way. We're going to talk about quiet quitting because I think that it's neither of those, right? What people are describing when they're saying quiet quitting is something that's the opposite of what I'm just describing, where you leave your job. You're talking about staying in your job. When you quietly quit, you do what I've done many times in my career, and I'm sure many others have, where you consider the path I'm just describing. Oh, am I going to take a parallel move, or am I going to step up the ladder and up the chain in a different company? You think about that as you're working your current job. So not in the position I'm in where you've not got a current job, but whilst you're still at your old one, right? You're thinking about the path and the branch, and maybe you're not thinking about it, you're getting headhunted, but those people headhunting you represent one of those paths on the branch, right? Either they're reaching out to you in your job because they want you to do this other thing, or they have this very cushy opportunity where you can just be like, oh, you know what? The current thing that I'm doing has its stresses, has its strains, has its frustration. So if I just sidestep into this thing over here, then everything can sort of stay the same, except I might actually enjoy myself and not cry in the bathroom so much. So having been in that position a few times, the quiet quitting that I do, knowing that I'm considering the path, knowing that I'm considering the way out of this company that I'm currently in, I think about reducing my responsibilities, because my objective is that someone says, oh, Tom, you're not really working as hard as you used to, and you're not giving as much as you used to, so that I can say, yeah, you're right, you dickhead, I quit. So it's quiet quitting right up until the moment that it's very loud quitting, because I've been called out on slacking. And, that's all very passive aggressive. I'm sure you've quickly identified. But it's that moment of like the quiet quitting, as when I first heard that phrase, I thought it applied to that period right before the loud quitting, where you're thinking about leaving your job and you're thinking about what you might take as one of those paths, and you're thinking about what your last day is going to be. Like, quietly quitting can be sat there strategizing who you have to tell first that you're leaving. What's going to happen on your last day? How are you going to, pack up and leave and make a scene or not, right? And if you're thinking about that and you're imagining that day, then that's very quiet because it's private and it's personal, and you are quitting. So there you go. That's, I think, first off, I hear that phrase all the time, and I think it's been misused. So we should investigate, what is it being used for? I think it's a description of one of the two forks of those paths that I've just described, right? People are using that phrase to describe chilling, just doing exactly what your job description describes, so that you don't exert yourself for no reason. You earn the money that you are looking to earn. You probably think that you're being underpaid, and you probably think you're being undervalued. So even earning the money you are earning is a bit of a mick-take, but you grade yourself down to exactly what you're being paid. And therefore, you hew towards fairness, and you afford yourself time off, hopefully, reduce time at the cliff face, that's for sure. Therefore, time off, hopefully, time to relax. You get less stressed. You invest yourself less and less. You ultimately, if there is such a thing as the work-life balance, you say, okay, and raise your foot off the work pedal and allow life, hopefully, then to raise back up. I think I've described a seesaw the right way around there. We'll work out, I suppose. What I'm trying to say is, you've carved out more life for yourself because you are considering that, one, your work is not your life, and two, your life is not your work. Ha ha ha. And I don't think, how can that be quiet quitting, right? Because you're not angling to leave the company. You are actually stating, this job is good enough because you pay me and I can turn up and do it, and I mean turn up virtually or physically, I can turn up and do it, it's enough, I can give enough, you can pay me enough, everything's just enough. So no one's looking to leave. What they are not looking to do is exert themselves, push themselves too far. Because whether it is the pandemic, whether it is the lockdowns, whether it is working from home, whether it is economic crises, on the trot, we've all, I suppose, become more aware that jobs suck, Blink-182 were telling us for years, but, work sucks. And none of us want to do it. And yet the culture, at least here in the West, and so, I'm speaking from my own experience, the culture is do more. And so that would be really quietly overachieving, because you're supposed to do more. You're encouraged to do more, or you receive extremely positive feedback when you go above and beyond. And you're going the extra mile, and you're reaching, and you're pushing, and you're doing all this for verbal feedback, maybe recognition, maybe it does help you stand out a little bit. But when you're not recognized for a long period of time and nothing changes about your situation, and you're just continuing to stretch and give and over exert yourself, and your situation is staying the same, that's the moment I think that people are aware of and love to talk about and have been embittered about, but now have the tools, which are being in the privacy of their own home or having better boundaries between work and home. They're using that opportunity to say, oh, okay, well, I guess then we'll just go back to zero, because all that extra miling I was doing was getting me nowhere. So I'm just going to go back to the anticipated number of miles. I'm not going to fill in the blanks and pick up somebody else's hat, I'm not going to be a team player, because this isn't a team. I have a really, really strict role, and it's defined in a legal document that we all signed. And so I'm going to do that, and you're going to pay me for that. And that's what we all agree to. And so this effort of the nauseating sort of business speak of being a family and, all having one another's backs and things like that crumbles apart when we all collectively realize, or all collectively take action on the fact that, well, they've never had our backs. Like, our companies have never had our backs. As when they've said that we're all family, they've considered us to be, cogs in their machine. They haven't looked at us as family, as they have said, well, we're all family. And, because if they did, then it wouldn't be that way, right? Your family don't consistently ask you to go the extra mile. I mean, immediately I've wandered into familial relations, so I take all of that back. But you know what I'm trying to say? The way that there is an expectation in almost all industries to do more than you've been asked to do has always been rejected, has always been a point of contention between employees and employed people. But now here is this movement, and the media is calling it quiet quitting, and I'm here to say, get a better name. You're wrong, okay? I shake my fist at you because, it deserves a better name. It's a cooler movement than that. And like I say, quiet quitting describes something else and very different. But it is a good question, because that's a good way to get dignity back into your life. if you're feeling undignified by how much you're putting in at work and, not being recognized. That's a good way to get space and time in your life if you feel that you've given it away to work. You step back and you take your foot off the gas and you say, you know what? I'm not answering that email. I'm logging off Slack right now. I've done my last thing of the day, actually, and I'm paid for those hours. There's a huge power in that, right? But it butts up against ambition. And I was talking about ambition last time in terms of wanting to seem and appear and conduct myself professionally to, get more work, to get more recommendations, to get more networking in, and to do, hopefully, better work next time, right? Do a cooler project, move up the chain. And like I say, now we're talking about the two paths again. When you're thinking about a new job, do you want to do you want to get the kind of job that you'll be quietly quitting in? Do you want to get the kind of job that you're just making bags, punching the card, getting the thing? That's nice. It's solid. It's super reliable. And the money comes into the account. You do the work and it's all good. But what if you're tied up in what you do for work in this way that I am, in both a technical and a creative industry? I like what I do. And so it's not even just about I'm ambitious because I want to be paid more or I want to get to the next level of management. I actually want to push my technical ability and I actually want to push my creative prowess further and further each time. I want to make sure that the next project that I put code against is more detailed, but also more solid in its development principles, more perfectly executed, but also more ambitious in scale, and all of those kind of things. And inevitably, you can't do that, right? Some website's going to come along and it's going to be some WordPress thing. You're going to be updating someone's Squarespace, and that's fine because those websites need love too. But when you want to be moving on and moving up, like I do, because I have that creative drive, it really butts up against the idea of how nice it can be just to be good at your job. Just to work 9 to 5, be 100% solid and reliable, work on the projects that you know how to work on, and get the cash, Get the recognition. Oh, Tom, nice job, as ever. Stable, reliable. Thank you for that. Or do you put in that extra effort? Do you stretch? Do you expand? Do you take on more stuff? And do you ultimately run the risk of some failures? And you ultimately run the risk of spending too long at the office. Everybody else has gone home and you're there working on the project after hours, and maybe that thing you worked on doesn't even make it to the live site. And of course I'm talking about work, and I've been talking about work, and those are the things I'm thinking about as I choose a new job, or I'm quietly quitting in the past my last. Am I going up the path of hard work leads to greater glory, but it's higher risk? Or am I going to do strong and steady, right? And I think about that comparison as it applies to other creative things that I've done not professionally. And I feel also that I'm at something of a turning point with those as well. I've alluded to it, and I've said a few times on this podcast, and you've heard some of it at the very beginning of this very episode, but I make music, and I have made music for many, many years, and I love to do so, but it's hard. It's hard. It's very, very high effort. It's sort of sculptural because you feel like you're always chipping away at this very difficult material, at least I find, and only sometimes does it really form into the shape that you were hoping it would form. And also, the joy of music I find is live performance. And that's incredibly high effort, in terms of getting the gig and practicing and, making sure everyone in the band is on board and interplaying the songs. And you have no control over them and what they're doing. So they have to make their own way to the music, and so do you. So that obviously takes a lot of emotional effort. And, there's many, many things that make making music extremely hard work. Is it worth it? Absolutely. Like, when it pays off, when you hear that clip back, when you hear those snippets of the ideas that you've had in your head actually played back to you in the speakers, or you come back to it, weeks and months later, and you're like, oh yeah, that is what I was intending after all. And you like that bit, and then you share it with someone else, and they're like, oh, I like that bit too. That's what it's all worth, right? And that's where you put in the hard work. But when it is risky, when it is sculpture, when it is sort of working hard on a goal and a vision that you have, there's a lot of space for disappointment, and there's a lot of space for discouragement. And I think I've taken a lot of that discouragement hard because, music hasn't got easier even over time, as I feel like I've got better at it. Maybe my abilities maybe have not matched the outstripping of my taste. I'm like, well, now I can do this. I want to do this. And there's always more to learn, more to do, right? And also just the vibe has changed. Like, I used to be able to just walk into the guy's bedroom who lived next to me at university, and we just would play guitar together. And that's not the life I live anymore. So again, sort of high effort and high input to get back to that space of where creating is possible, in the way that you want it to be, and the way that gets the feedback loop going of this huge effort was worth it, and I got the results, and I'm really happy that I put my time against this. And then I contrast that with what I'm doing right now. What I love about this medium is that it's so immediate. I'm getting meta with you right now, so I'm holding your hand through this, okay? I sit down in front of this microphone, I speak. This is all off the top of my head. It's just so immediate. It's the very opposite of sculpture. It's just free form and open. And I feel like I'm in the flow state of having a really good conversation with someone. And I know that I'm by myself. I recognize that I'm alone, and I recognize that this is just a parasocial relationship that I have through the microphone, through the camera lens, with you, dear listener, dear reader. But it is an important one, and it's something that I've really come to enjoy and explore in the same way that I've enjoyed exploring the relationship with a crowd of people when you're playing music, or just one person when you're playing them a song. But again, the difference is that I can sit down in this chair and just open up and immediately let it happen, and it just literally rolls off my tongue. And then that's that. And then I edit it very minimally. I sort the video with the audio, and then I'm uploading it, and then it's on the internet. And that's it. And then people watch, and they listen, and they tell me how they felt, and they comment, and some of them like, and I'm able to have a discussion about some of the things that I said in the episode, and people want to talk to me about that, or they just want to say that they saw the episode, or nobody watches it at all, and I listen to it back and I'm like, oh yeah, I knew what I was talking about in that moment. Or I say, oh, I fluffed that, but that's okay because I knew what I meant underneath. And that was it. And that cycle took no time at all. So immediate, so flowing, so one step very easily following the next. And ultimately very low effort, right? Very cheap. I record the video with my phone. You know, I've had this mic for a million years. It's a trusted piece of equipment. The Sapphire, the Focus even is new. But nothing's, breaking the bank here. I'm using my laptop that I use for work. It's all low effort. It's all tools I already have or already, involved in music. And yet the joy that I feel because of the immediacy of the feedback loop and the ease of putting the creative work together, that joy is making me feel that you don't have to be rigidly ambitious and breathtakingly high intensity every time you step into a creative endeavor. Sometimes the simplest and most natural feeling thing is the one that you should go with. And it's not wrong to quietly quit on your high effort music career if you get to experience the joys of the low effort podcast career. And that's what I think the problem is.